Oh, hey, I didn't see you there. If you're anything like me, you love a good, authentic Asian meal. But if you're also anything like me, you might be hesitant to cook it yourself. There's always a long list of ingredients that require a specialty store, and the steps can be so complicated. But not to worry. Here in Big Al's Kitchen, we're going to make it easy for you. We're going to be using ingredients you probably already have lying around your kitchen and utensils that you already own. And we're going to be making Paijon and Sichuan spicy noodles, and combining those dishes with local adaptations that are already adapted to the palates and kitchens of Ann Arbor students today. So, without further ado, let's get started.
Woo!
So for our first meal of the video, we are going to be talking about Paijon, which essentially is a Korean green onion pancake. Very delicious. And the first step is going to be slicing some green onion or scallions. And as we like to say here, no knife skills, no problem. You can see me struggling a little bit, going pretty slow, but hey, that happens. We're going to be doing about 2 bunches of green onion right there. The best part of the green onion is the end with the white and lighter green parts. We want to make sure we get that as much as possible. But the ends are pretty good too, so you can pretty much use the entire thing in this one. I just didn't use the very tail ends of those. Once we get a good chop on those green onions, we can move on to the next step in the process, which is going to be making our batter. Batter has, I think, 3 main components in it. The first of which is the flour. We're going to use about a cup of flour. We're going to follow that up with the cornstarch you can see on the left there. And then our final ingredient is going to be a bunch of spices. It's a mix of pepper, baking powder, and salt. And as that goes in, we're going to give that a good mix to make sure those are all combined. You could sift it if you wanted to, but that's not necessary. I think a quick mix will get the job done. And we're going to follow that with a nice sauce to add some Asian flavor to the batter. That is going to be 1 egg yolk, some garlic, and soy sauce, which sounds like a pretty delicious combo to me. Don't worry if you spill a little bit of soy sauce, you can always just splash more in there. No problem at all. So we're gonna mix that up until all the ingredients are well combined. Once we have the sauce made, we're gonna immediately mix that in with our flour mixture. And then we're gonna add a little bit of club soda. You probably have some of that left over from the weekend. Maybe you made a couple drinks and you have some club soda lying around. This is the perfect time to use it so it doesn't go to waste. We're gonna whisk that together for about 30 seconds or so until all those ingredients are properly combined. And as I get into power mixing mode right there, we are gonna be focusing on our next ingredient, the ever important green onion. So I have about 3 cups of green onion, which is a lot. That's the whole 2 bunches right in there. And then we're just going to fold that in to the batter, which is a fancy term for mix it in just a little bit at a time, and kind of scoop the batter over the onion once you put it in. So you can see that going on right here. And at this point, I know exactly what you're thinking. What is the historical and cultural context of this dish? And that's an excellent question, and I'd be happy to answer it for you. So Paijon is a traditionally Korean dish. The pa in Paijon means scallions, and often it's served with seafood or other kinds of meats. We made a more simple version today. The historical roots of Paijon actually go back to the city of Busan and the Joseon dynasty. Legend has it that there was a fortress there, and when the Japanese invading soldiers came to attack it, the general there defended the fortress very well, and as they were fleeing, threw scallions on the soldiers, and that's what gives the dish its name today. The historical roots of Paijon go to several different places. Some have said that the Chinese scallion pancake is the original source of Paijon. Others debate that it is okonomiyaki, which is from Japan. I would argue that the okonomiyaki influence might be more prevalent because of the imperialism that the Japanese placed upon the Koreans, but I think it's good evidence of the layered influence of the dish and how its origins come from actually multiple different regions instead of just Korea itself. And now that our history lesson is over, we're going to get to the ever exciting frying step. My first tip would be not to add too much batter like I did for the first one. You want to try to make about 3 evenly sized pancakes, and I put a little bit too much batter in initially. Still turned out well, but the flip, as you're going to see right about here, didn't. But hey, we're all amateurs and sometimes mistakes happen. The good news in this case is that the mistake didn't really affect the flavor. It still came out crispy and well cooked, and I was happy with the result. But as you can see here, the shape isn't exactly what we may have wanted, and all that leaves is room for us to improve on the next try, which is exactly what we are about to do now. So we are going to add this next pancake here. I added a little less batter and made an effort to spread it out a little bit more. That way it cooks faster, turn the heat up a little bit too. And this one, you can see in the flip, is going to be a lot better looking, comes together more cleanly. And this is a way better example of Parmesan. So once that one is done and cooked on both sides, we're going to let it sit for a minute and get the excess oil off there with a little bit of paper towel. And that leaves us with our third and final attempt. Try to do the same thing I did with the second one with a little bit less batter and a little bit more spread out. And it also turned out great. And I think one of the best parts of this dish is the scallion flavor. The green onions really come out very well, and you can taste that as opposed to like a normal American style pancake. That was really enjoyable. So here is the Parmesan. We have 3 different pancakes, all of a little bit different texture in crispiness and flavor as well. And this meal just goes to show you can make an authentically Asian dish with just the ingredients you happen to have around. There was nothing we needed to go to a specialty store for here, and there was still a lot of really great flavors coming out of this Parmesan. So for our second dish today, we're going to be cooking up some spicy Szechuan noodles, also called don don noodles in the region in China. Might seem like a daunting task, but if we make it a little bit easier with a few ingredients, we can get it done with just the things we have around the kitchen. So what I'm doing here is I'm combining a half a pound of ground beef. Recipe called for pork, but I went for beef instead because I had it lying around, and using that with a little bit of soy sauce and salt. And then after that, we just get our hands dirty and we start mixing around that beef. So our next steps are going to be to cook the beef in a lot of oil, then make our spicy Szechuan sauce, which is going to consist of a lot of garlic and peppers and chicken stock. And then following that, we're going to prepare our noodles, and that'll be a complete dish we can make. So next step, as we just said, we're going to fry up our beef. Takes about 4 to 5 minutes to get it nice and brown and crispy. We're going to want to flip it over about halfway through. And we'll see that flip action coming up in just a second here. The size of the chunks of your meat is really dependent on how you're feeling about it. Kind of gives you a little bit of chance to be your own cook. I like a little bit of bigger chunks, but if that's not your preference, that's totally fine. Not to worry whatsoever. So as the beef is cooking here, our next step once it's cooked is going to be to spoon it on a plate so we can save it for later. And then we're going to dump all but 2 tablespoons of that nice flavored oil out. And that'll lead us to our next step, which is going to be adding our combination of scallions, garlic, and ginger to the mix. And we're going to give that about 30 seconds or so to cook, just to kind of make the flavors aromatic. And then we're going to give that a quick stir before we add our next ingredients. The first of which is going to be a nice hearty spoonful of peanut butter. I know you have that lying around somewhere. Followed by 2 tablespoons of chili oil. Didn't have that in my kitchen, so I just mixed up some chili powder and regular vegetable oil. That should do the trick. A little bit of chicken broth to give some liquid to the mixture, and another quick little bit of soy sauce for some umami flavor. We have that soy sauce in there, we have all our main ingredients in, and we are going to let that come up to a simmer. And while it's simmering, I think this is a perfect time to talk about the historical and cultural contexts of Szechuan spicy noodles. So as we can see here, Sichuan is in the south-central region of China. It borders the Himalayan mountains on the southwest side and is a little bit more remote than other regions of China, especially along the coast. Sichuan is special for their famous peppercorns, And this dish actually calls for a different type of pepper, which is a chili pepper, which came to China through the Columbian Exchange. So the Columbian Exchange and the Indian Ocean trade were two important intercontinental trade networks that brought new goods from countries and continents that hadn't been in existence before. And these Szechuan spicy noodles are a great example of these new ingredients. It includes chili peppers and peanuts, both of which we featured in the spicy noodles we made today, which I think shows to show the importance of the global network of foods that go to make this real regional dish. And in the Sichuan region today, this is a very common street food, Sichuan spicy noodles. So you can see it being eaten by a lot of people in the lower socioeconomic classes of the region as a common, delicious food they can eat on a regular basis. Now that we're back in the kitchen, we can see that that's been simmering for a few minutes. It's just about done. Our last step is going to be to take the beef we already cooked and put it back into the pan as we see there, and let those juices and flavors all come together and make sure all the spices are infused within the beef. And then the last step we're going to have to do is get our noodles cooked, obviously. And the recipe called for a Chinese egg noodle, but we don't have the resources to make that happen, so we're going to use this opportunity to clear our cabinet space a little bit and use a food that all college students are pretty familiar with, and that is going to be Top Ramen, an instant classic. So we're going to take about 4 packets, should be enough, and we're going to just boil some water and cook it like any regular pasta. And here you go, a little bit into the cooking process we have it. Should loosen up in a couple minutes at the most in boiling water. And while we let that finish cooking, we are going to talk about the plating process. So pretty simple 3-step process here. All you got to do is toss a little bit of ramen noodle down first into each. Then we're going to follow that with the sauce and the beef on top. And voila, we have a delicious meal in front of us for you and a friend. And pretty much all we had to do was stir and clean out our pantries. So low effort, high reward in this one. I would highly recommend it. And I think that final product is looking pretty darn good.